Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Lots going on this week. So we got Innistrad Remastered dropped last Friday, and collector boxes are holding at about 332. More and more sales of the serialized Edgar Markov card are happening over on eBay at the $3,500 price point, and several more of those cards have appeared. So about 20 copies out of the 500 total have shown up and either sold or are for sale between just eBay and TCG Player over the weekend. Of course, Aetherdrift collector boxes, all of a sudden, it's the biggest thing ever. There's going to be another single serialized card. There's going to be all these other great additions to it, and now it's not the worst set ever. It's not ultra crappy ripoff of Fast and the Furious and Akira, and actually people really want it bad. So the collector boxes of those headed up to 285 right now. I hope you bought last month when I was buying and I was telling you guys to buy at 190 to 200. Hopefully you guys came along and you got in on that. So we ran the sealed sale number 9 on Friday. That was for Dominaria Remastered collector boxes. They went for between $16 and $24 off of the current market price, depending on how many you ordered, all the way up to 2 sealed factory cases. And I sold a little short of half of what I had available for it. So, okay performance, pretty good. I'm plenty happy with it, and I'm more than happy to have the rest of it hang around for a while longer and continue gaining value. So, never going to shy away from that on a product like Dominaria Remastered. Now, I may do a sealed sale on Aetherdrift collector boxes when they release here in, 2.5 weeks. So yeah, we're going to have all of 3 weeks between the release of Innistrad Remastered and Aetherdrift. 2.5 of them left now that it's Tuesday. So I may run a sealed sale on those. I don't know. Depends on what the prices look like. It depends on how many of the ones that I ordered for my patrons end up getting filled and what the whole situation looks like at the time. Beyond that, I still have tons of other sealed sale candidates out there. So at the very worst, come that weekend, we will be doing a sealed sale on something. We'll figure out what it is when we get closer to there. So I'm not seriously evaluating it yet. I'm hoping Aetherdrift will work out and I can run a sale, help out some of my patrons who maybe missed out on the better priced pre-orders. You know, I always come back to how negative people are in markets and how just a couple weeks ago, everything was, oh, Aetherdrift's going to be the worst set of the year. It's a standard release. It's awful. No one likes vehicles, all this stuff. And, you know, I'll agree, yeah, it's not magic flavored, and that always irritates me, but, you know, I'm only one guy in the market. And so my say on those kind of things in the market doesn't really matter. Even through all the negativity, here we are, $285. We have 2.5 weeks left to go until release. And we have more and more excitement building as WotC has shown us what is going to come in those collector boxes. And it always amazes me through 20 years of the stock market, now 4 years here in the TCG market, how negative people can continue to be even in the face of everything for years on end. You know, one of the things I realized really early on, certainly by the early 2010s, was that markets are cyclical. And when you zoom out the price plots to the longest time periods you can see, prices almost always go up over time, over long periods of time. And it's that way in the stock market. Very rarely do companies go bankrupt. Very rarely do, say, accounting frauds get exposed and companies lose huge amounts of value. You know, those kind of things just don't happen that often. They happen rarely, but not that often. The same thing in the TCG world. If you're sticking with good quality games that are going to hang around for the long term, it's very rare to lose money on these products. Yeah, you know, you can buy them and on paper they can go down for months, sometimes years. Some of those 2022, 23, 21 era products, we're still waiting for recoveries on those. Some of them have recovered very well, but maybe not all the way yet. But on the long timeline, it is incredibly rare for assets like these to perform badly. And if you just have the patience to sit there and do nothing, you do pretty well in these kind of markets. And so it always amazes me, and I don't know if I'd say it discourages me, because I mostly just chuckle at it nowadays when I have people leave comments on my video about how, oh, Aetherdrift's a terrible set, it's going to do awful. It's going to be the Karlov Manor of this year, of 2025. And it's like, well, if you want to bet against a particular set, man, that is a rough bet to try and take right now, especially the collector boxes of any particular set. If you want to try to identify one of them before release and say, this is the one where WotC is going to screw it up, where in the last 2 years, how many collector boxes have we had in 2 years? We had, what, 9 standard sets, we've got a couple of remastered sets, we've got some summer releases, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, probably a couple others for Universes Beyond. Probably, I don't know, 15 collector boxes in the last 2 years since the beginning of 23. And how many of them have been duds? 2? Maybe 3. You can count Dominaria Remastered if you want to move the goalpost so much that something that's, selling at $235 today, I think that's still pretty close to original wholesale. I'd have to go back and look at my records. But the reality is, we've got 2 or maybe 3 boxes in the last 2 years in collector boxes that have done badly. And you want to bet against the next one when 12, 13, 14, whatever the other side of it is, that many successes in the last 2 years. And those include things like Lord of the Rings Special Edition and Fallout. Man, Wilds of Eldraine, how well that's done as a standard expansion collector box. Foundations. What's Foundations? $385 right now? $390? Something like that. And you want to take a bet against the next collector box. What's the next one? It's Tarkir something, Dragon something. I saw it the other day. Are you going to bet against that? That's a really tough bet to make. Now, if you want to bet in favor, if you see pre-orders at $190, $195, $200, betting on that is a pretty good bet. When WotC's had 80% hit rate in the last 2 years on collector boxes. And yet it's unbelievable the amount of negativity I see. And I always wonder, do these people just not have the ability to take one step backwards and try to look at things in a little more broad context and see what has been happening? What has even happened with a lot of those 21 and 22 era collector boxes that were so unloved and did so badly for so long, and most of them are doing well now. And even then, people will bet against it. And it's the same way in the stock market. You'll see people just, for years on end, the Perma-bears will just say, oh yeah, that economic collapse, it's just around the corner. Don't you worry, it's coming any day now. And from time to time, we'll have pullbacks. We'll have, sector shifts or things like that. Maybe we'll have a recession once in a while. But where's the economic collapse? Where's the justification for not having invested more in the market? It never arrives. And now when you back up on the plots and you look at, say 2004 to 2024, and you look at the S&P 500 over that period, or the Dow Jones Industrial, and you see it just marches upwards. It's just up and up and up and up and up. And, there's a little blip there for the Great Financial Crisis, and there's a little blip there that was COVID, and a couple other ones. And yet, here we are. Those doomsday events very rarely happen. Imagine that. Doomsday is rare. And, people will continue that way. Nothing's going to change that fundamentally. People are kind of crazy in the head about how they do investments. They're too emotional. They're too short-term thinking, and they don't see that, hey, Pokemon has this amazing, almost 30-year history of incredible performance. And yet they say, this just can't go on. It was never meant to be like this. Markets don't work this way. And it's like, well, they've been doing this for the last 25 years. And for some reason, we're supposed to believe that now it's going to stop. The crazy idea is that it's going to stop. The reasonable idea is that, it'll probably continue about like it has before, especially when we talk about Pokemon and the way that company has just made an absolute science out of loading up the pipeline from childhood, get them interested in Pokemon, get them on the shows, get them into the toys, the card games, everything, and then keep them hooked for life because it becomes a piece of nostalgia of their childhood. And that pipeline is still firmly intact, growing people into future adult Pokemon card buyers once they come back with money in adulthood. And I don't see anything to make that stop. You ask yourself, what would Pokemon USA have to do to actually screw it up? Maybe if they came out one day and they said, you know what, we're just going to discontinue all the original Pokemon and we're just going to come up with completely new ones. Pikachu is out and Snorlax is out and Charizard and everyone you love, they're all out. Maybe if they did that. But imagine how bad they would have to sabotage themselves in order to screw up what they've built. And yet there are people who will say, no, I just can't do it. I just can't buy Scarlet and Violet. It's unbelievable. It's just absolutely crazy. And yet you see it again and again and again and on and on and on. And, the apocalypse never comes and the meltdown never happens and going to zero never quite gets there. And yet still so many people will just be so negative while they miss out. And, with Scarlet and Violet, I said it a couple days ago that Scarlet and Violet is overheated. You look at the age of the boxes and the prices of them, and it's definitely outside of the range that Pokemon Company likes them to be at. The boxes are more expensive in the market for most of the Scarlet and Violet releases right now than Pokemon USA wants them to be. And Pokemon USA can make a lot of money by doing a reprint and selling that reprint into the distribution center system. And I hope they do. And when they do, and hopefully, my dream is that they crash all of it as hard as they did in 2021. When Reddit was begging people not to buy Fusion Strike because it's printed to oblivion, not to buy Chilling Reign, don't buy Brilliant Stars, it's awful. Don't buy any of it. And, here we are 4 years later, actually less than 4, because the real dump of product onto the market was in kind of October area of 21. So, we're 3.5 years after that. And look at where all the prices went. Man, I absolutely hope the Pokemon Company annihilates the Scarlet and Violet market. I hope they just crush it with reprints. I hope the boxes are back down at $90. But you know what? If they only come back down to $120, hey, I'd be happy with that. We'd all be happy with that. And we had the big crush of product come to the market in late 21. And then we went through all of 22 and the regular releases of new Pokemon products. And so you had this kind of combination of the new products would get printed and released. And then you still had this crush of products from 21. And by the end of 22, things were so terrible price-wise in the Pokemon market. And I say terrible. I mean, it was great for us. If you can actually take that one step backwards and look side to side and think about things on a timeline longer than an hour, it was amazing. But, the prices in the view of a lot of card stores, they were terrible because the prices were $80 a box, things like that. But once late 22 rolled around and the people watching this channel at the time and my patrons, and we started buying all the supplemental Pokemon products. And I actually had it on one of my spreadsheets that I use for my business where I record all the stuff I've been doing, all the buys I've made. And I had a tab on the spreadsheet for that. And I recorded all the stuff I bought back then in late 22 and early 23. And that stuff is up over 500%. Late 22, early 23, this is early 25, 2 years. 2 years and, some change, a couple months of change. And that stuff is up 500%. I dream that the Pokemon Company absolutely annihilates the Scarlet and Violet market. God, I hope they do, so we can have a repeat of that. You know, I was thinking about it before I started recording here, and the absolute worst performing thing I have bought from the Scarlet and Violet era is Battle Styles boxes. They're only up 100% in 3.5 years. Golly, I hope they annihilate the Scarlet and Violet market. I hope people capitulate so bad. They want to sell so hard. The card store's got to sell, and people watching this channel can pick the stuff up dirt cheap like we were doing in 21 and 22 and 23. It would be amazing. And, you know, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe the reprint waves come and they're just not big enough, and the market pullback on the back of the reprint waves just isn't that dramatic. Maybe it doesn't happen, and I'll just keep doing what I always do, which is buy a little bit of everything. Cast the wide thin net and buy the same number of booster boxes and build and battle displays and ETBs of every expansion and put it back in the closet, because on the long timeline, Pokemon does amazing. So people will always be crazy negative, and when you encounter those people in the investment world, whatever the type of investment is, man, just steer away from those crazy negative people who always tell you that it can't be like this, it's never meant to be this way, it can't go on. And you watch, and just year after year after year, you'll see those kind of people, and they just make the same pontifications, and they're always wrong. And there will be these narrow time periods during bear markets when they'll celebrate that, oh, it went down 20%. And it's like, well, you know, my Evolving Skies, it's up 1,400%. And then you're telling me it's going to go down 20% from there. So it's going to lose, what, like 280 of the original percents that it gained. You know, it's like, I'm still up 1,100% and I'm supposed to feel bad? You know, and that's if Evolving Skies could somehow drop by 20% from here, which I don't think there's any hope. I mean, Moonbreon is too sought after a card. It can't drop that much. I would be shocked if it did. But, you know, these people, when we hit a bear market, and, you know, maybe we'll come into a bear market on Pokemon this year, I'll be celebrating if we do. But if we do, then the Perma-bears will say, see, I told you so. I told you so. Here it is. It's the big crash. And you'll look around and you'll try to make them understand that, you know, you've got Sword and Shield that's up 500%, up 1,000%. And the worst, those battle style boxes are up 100%. And you'll say, you know, the prices are only declining 10, 20, 30% from the highs. Like, I'm still up hundreds of percent. And they won't understand. And then eventually, you know, the bear market will pass, as bear markets do. Things will go back into heated up conditions, and prices will begin to rise, and these scarce collectibles that people destroy for fun will continue to become more and more and more scarce. And eventually those people will pivot again to pontificating doom, and that the sky is falling, and that this is dumb, and markets aren't meant to work this way, and it's never meant to be like this, and it can't go on. And, you know, what you can do at that point is you can take that step back, and you can look side to side, and you can focus on the long-term price plots and see, you know, those Evolving Skies boxes where you have a basis cost of 120, 130, something like that. And yeah, they marched up to 1,500, and maybe if we get that big bad bear market this year, maybe they pull back to 1,200, and then, you know, in another 2 or 3 years from now, they're a $3,000 box. We won't feel bad at all. None of us feels bad that we held through the great financial crisis, that we held through the COVID crash, that we held through every little up and down any given day or week or month or year or cycle in a market. None of us feels bad about that, because on the long timeline, that's exactly how you make the most money in a market. You just have to be patient and unemotional and not do dumb things. You have to ignore the short-term noise. You just have to have a steady plan and follow it unemotionally. So I don't know how to convince people, how to convince the Perma-bears that you know, the world ending is a very rare occurrence, but I don't know how to get them to realize that the world's probably not going to end. The pipeline of Pokemon buyers is probably not going to suddenly just cut off. And all past history shows that most of these assets do pretty well over time, and we should probably expect that to continue until we have a really good reason to expect it not to. So look, guys, sealed sale number 10 probably coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks, unless I just absolutely decide to shove a product ahead in the queue. But probably in the next 2 weeks, join the Patreon if you want to get in on that. I'll have the February monthly sales list up here in the next week or so. I typically don't publish that the first of the month because I'm busy with other things like what did I buy video and flesh and blood video and just other things I have to do on the first of the month for the business. So that typically comes a couple of days afterwards. And I owe you guys a newsletter for January. I've been working on that, so it's coming in the next day or so. Let me know what you think, guys. It's a great market. It's absolutely exciting right now. Edgar Markov is wrecking things. I think Innistrad remastered boxes at $335 are way too cheap. And, man, it's going to be an awesome year. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade. Where's my mouse?